By the end of the 1970s, women made up 40% of Scotch drinkers, and since many of them preferred Scotch with mixers, they went for the brand advertised as made for mixing. Hello and welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon. Bottle number 43 is another lovely old bottle of blended Scotch whiskey, Bell's Extra Special, packaged in a cute little bell-shaped bottle. Even though it's made of glass, it is sadly half empty, maybe thanks to its odd little plastic screw cap. Bell's is a storied Scotch brand, and for a time was the UK's best-selling blended Scotch whiskey. As you might expect, the brand was created by a man named Bell, Arthur Bell to be specific. Arthur started blending and selling Scotch in 1851. But he was a shy guy, and it wasn't until his sons took over the business after his death in 1904 that the Bell name appeared on a bottle. And thus, Bell's Extra Special became a brand. The company grew slowly and steadily throughout the early 20th century and purchased the Blair Athol distillery in the 1930s. Its whiskey is still the base malt of the blend, along with other famous malts Cal Ela and Glencanische, and two I hadn't heard of, Inchgower and Dufftown. But like the famed tortoise, slow and steady paid off, and by 1970, Bell's was Scotland's best-selling blended whiskey. What followed from there was nothing short of an extraordinary climb, with the brand sales increasing 800% from 1970 to 1979, by which time it was not just Scotland's, but the UK's best-selling blend, and controlled a whopping 35% of the market in Britain. So how did they do this? Credit goes to then Chairman and CEO Raymond Miguel. One of Miguel's key strategies in the 70s was to ditch the stuffy idea that you had to drink Scotch straight and instead market Bell's as a product for mixing. And while I don't know if this was the goal or just a happy accident, one effect of that approach was that it made the product more appealing to women. By the end of the 1970s, women made up 40% of Scotch drinkers, and since many of them preferred Scotch with mixers, they went for the brand advertised as made for mixing. In the 1980s, Bell's sought to break into the US market and relied on this trusted strategy with a great series of magazine ads featuring attractive mixed-gender groups and the very clever tagline, "Perfectly proper in mixed company." I don't know how successful the campaign was for them, but they were doing well enough that by 1985, Guinness launched a successful hostile takeover bid and spent $518 million to grab the company. This was the beginning of Guinness's Scotch acquisition strategy, as the following year would see them buy our old friend Distillers Corporation Limited, the largest whiskey company in the world at the time. See bottles number 31, Vat 69, and 32, Seagram's Almondine, for more on DCL. That purchase would also land several Guinness Company executives in jail, but that's a story for another time. As for my bottle, my best guess is that it comes from the 1970s when Bell's star was ascendant. I thought I might be able to date it from the bell shape, but they've been doing that for a while, starting with ceramic bell-shaped decanters in the 1920s. That said, I haven't found any glass bells claiming to be from before the 1970s, so that supports my guess. It must have been purchased in the UK because the proof is listed at 70, which is old UK proof for 40% ABV, and the UK moved to ABV labeling in 1980. It doesn't list any volume, and I haven't been able to pinpoint when the UK started requiring volume measures, at least for minis. My bottle of Black Bottle Scotch is from 1976 to 1979, and that does have volume listed, so maybe this bottle is pre-1976, but that is totally a guess. I'm sad this one is half empty, because I don't think there's enough here to taste on its own and mix with ginger ale, as it was clearly meant to be. Do you know anything about when the UK started requiring volume on bottles? Drop a comment below, or visit mytinybottles.com or at mytinybottles on social media and tell me about it there. And check out mytinybottles.com for more pictures of this bottle and all the bottles. Cheers!